About 75% of people in Canada, we now figure, have complex trauma. And so there's probably a really good chance that you have it. And so I want to really kind of help you understand that, because there's a whole lot of stuff, misunderstanding that's already developing around the term. So what I want to do tonight is introduce an understanding, just a definition of trauma. In the weeks ahead, we're going to start to look at how it affects us, what healing looks like from trauma. It's very different from the traditional medical model that we use for healing other diseases. So it's just a very specialized thing. And then it's going to go into, you're probably going to hear me at 3 different levels. You're going to, as I'm teaching it, you're going, oh yeah, I know somebody that could hear this. And you're thinking of people that you could share it with. And then you're going to go, oh shoot, I think I might have this problem. And it's going to start to get kind of heavy feeling, because it's going to bring up memories of stuff from the past. And you're going to begin to understand them maybe through a new lens as to how they affected you and why you responded the way you did. And then you're probably going to go to a 3rd level and go, oh, wow, I messed up my kids. Now I'm going to feel guilty all night, and that's going to get really heavy. So all of this is not designed to end up in a beat yourself up thing. All of this is designed to end up in a healing thing. And healing begins with understanding. It begins with a growing self-awareness. And so let me begin with some interesting information. I hope that just helps you understand trauma. So what you can see there is you look at all the things that we spend money on today in our healthcare system. $216 billion is spent on cancer, $245 billion is spent on diabetes, $313 billion on heart disease, $671 billion on trauma. And that's probably a very low number, because we're just beginning to realize the ramifications that trauma has in the health and mental health world. Do you realize that over 90% of illnesses today in Canada and the US are now being understood to come out of stress and trauma? Trauma has 2 types, big T and little t trauma. So big T, horrific events, and that leads to what we call PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, and it is marked by 10 ongoing characteristics that people need help with. So you think of a soldier coming back, so they'll have flashbacks, nightmares, intrusive memories that are just very debilitating for them. They will then enter into avoidance type activities where they'll avoid certain places because it might bring back a memory, avoid certain people. So they avoid more and more things, social things. Then they have trouble sleeping, trouble concentrating. They become very hypervigilant, especially in public, of anything that might startle them. They have mood swings, and then struggle usually with depression and anxiety. And then they have triggers. And so if something triggers them, they hear a car backfire, then they have a startle response that leads to dysregulated emotions. They go to 0 to 100 in a nanosecond. And they lose their ability to control their emotions. So that is PTSD. That's what most of you are familiar with. That's what most of our culture thinks about when you think of trauma. And that's what most of the treatment that's out there today for trauma is for, those 10 things. And as you can see, those 10 things are debilitating. Those 10 things are not fun for anybody to have to live with. But then there's this little t trauma, and that's what we're going to focus a lot on, because that is the least understood. There's just not much awareness, but most people have it. And so it is known as complex PTSD, complex trauma, or CPTSD. So it goes by different things. It used to be called DTD, developmental trauma disorder. So it's kind of morphed. But here's what I want you to understand. It has about 60 characteristics. So PTSD had 10 negative characteristics. This unknown complex little t trauma has about 60 characteristics. They are debilitating. So what you need to understand is the 60 characteristics were survival tools that the child used to survive a childhood that wasn't safe. And those survival tools became their characteristics, and they kept them safe. But now in adult life, they're messing up their adult life. So let me give you an example. If you live in lack of safety as a child, well, you learn to manipulate. You learn not to trust people. You learn to wear masks all the time, not let anybody get to know the real you. Okay, come into adult life and try to have an intimate relationship where you manipulate, you don't trust, and you wear masks all the time. Impossible. Just not going to happen. So the tools that kept you safe now make adult life unmanageable. And so that's why people can live for years using those tools and they go, I don't got any problems. Everything seems to be working well for me, until they get in an intimate relationship or have kids. And then all of a sudden they're confronted 20, 30 years later with the fact, I might have some issues that I've been unaware of till now in my life. And so that's why it's not so easily detected, because the survival tools often aren't seen as a problem until later in life. So in the thing, I went through a whole bunch of characteristics. So here they are on the screen. And this is not all 60, but this is just some of them. So you can check off the ones or count how many apply to you. So self-esteem issues, depression, anxiety, borderline personality, ADHD or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, anger issues, trust issues, authority issues, control issues, wear masks, don't know who they are, perfectionists, people pleasers, have trouble saying no, boundary issues, long for intimacy but are afraid of it. They gain their value from externals, from doing, from their body, from their position, from their job, not from being a human being. So they're better known as a human doer, not a human being. That's where their value comes from. Hypersensitive to disrespect, hypersensitive to criticism, a negative critical mindset, impulsive, dissociate, trouble regulating emotions, stuff emotions, need distractions, don't deal well with stress, great starter, poor finisher, fear of change, fear of the unknown, fear of abandonment, fear of failure, fear of conflict, fear of being a burden, and even sabotage good success in their life. And then all kinds of relationship problems basically come out of those coping tools from a child with trauma. So how did you do on that? And last time we looked at the fact that trauma causes people to be basically driven by, controlled by fear at this very deep level that they might not even be aware of. Tonight what I want to look at is you can't understand complex trauma without understanding that it makes angry people. It makes a lot of anger. But most, again, aren't even aware of it. And that's what I'm going to try to explain to you so that you can become aware of it. Because what I've seen is that for many people, when I teach about anger, they go, I don't have any anger issues. The truth is that they've stuffed it down so far, they're not even aware of it to themselves. And many, by the time I'm done teaching, they'll come up to me afterwards and say, okay, now I'm angry at you. I've got anger issues. Most will say, I don't have anger issues, but maybe once in a while. My anger kind of flares up. Yeah, I do some damage at my job, with my kids, with my spouse, but otherwise I'm a pretty cool person. So they don't see those kind of crisis times where their anger escalates as being a super big problem. If you were to talk to somebody that's coming out of complex trauma and ask them about the anger emotion, most of them would immediately just assume that's bad. Because everything in their experience, anger's been a bad thing. It's never been shown, or it's never been acted on in a healthy way. It's always hurt somebody. It's always been negative. And so it's just bad. So we got to start by kind of understanding, is there such a thing as healthy anger? What's it look like? What's its purpose? So let me take you to, there is a healthy anger. It does have a very important design. So think of it this way. Whenever there is dishonesty, so somebody lies to you, we get angry. When there's disrespect, somebody puts you down or puts somebody else down, or your kids down, we get angry. Or they cheat on you, or there's injustice, we get angry. And we should. Why? Because that is unhealthy. If we keep lying to each other in this relationship is not going to be healthy. If we keep cheating, if we keep disrespecting, it is going to hurt us, hurt the relationship. So anger is a warning sign, a signal, something is violating love. And what it does is it gives me energy and motivation to want to change that, to get it back to healthy. So what we're saying is, to have a healthy relationship, you live within the boundaries where there is honesty and respect and justice and faithfulness. But we just stepped outside of those boundaries, and we're going to be in trouble if we don't correct it and get back inside of the boundaries. So my anger is motivating me and giving me energy to say, we got to fix this. That is not good. We should not be allowing that. This needs to be resolved. And so anger physiologically gets even some help in doing that, called cortisol. And it gives us a turbocharge of energy to try and correct it. And so it's deep inside of us. We have an alarm system when stuff violates love. And when it does, anger comes in to try to correct it. That is the design. But what happened for most people in complex trauma? They lived every day as a child with things that violated love. They were disrespected. They were lied to. They were cheated on. There wasn't justice. All kinds, hundreds of things. And they got angry as little children. They cried. They complained. They had a temper tantrum. Did that anger result in fixing the problem and getting it back to love? No, in most cases, because the authorities in their life weren't concerned about getting it back to healthy. And so the child got punished for their anger. They got told they're bad for having their anger. And so now they're living with injustice, with lying, with disrespect, all of those things that violate love, which hurt like crazy. But now if they get angry, they'll get hurt even more. They'll get punished, shamed, rejected. And so what is their only option? If you can't resolve the things that violate love, stuff down your anger. Become aware of your anger patterns. So let me just give you the triggers thing to think about. Most of us have hundreds of things that trigger anger. It can be what a person says or does. It can be an event. But again, it's touching an old wound. So for many from complex trauma, You go back to the things that violate love are their strongest triggers. Anything that's injustice. Anybody lies to me. Anybody disrespects me. Anybody cheats on me. Massive explosion takes place. Because those are your deepest wounds. And so it's a good anger, but now it just is over the top because you've never been able to resolve it in a healthy way. But those are big triggers. Then, for many, teasing, because that's a disrespect thing. It's a shame-based thing. Being bullied or watching others being bullied. Embarrassment. Being around immature people that are just stupid. People who just don't get it. Self-righteous hypocrites. People who don't respect your boundaries or other people's boundaries. People who are just so in their own little world, they're insensitive to your needs. Look for your shame and your guilt. Those are huge triggers of anger. Look for anything that feels like rejection or abandonment or neglect. Those are huge triggers. Next thing around mindfulness, so you get your patterns, but then an inventory every day of your anger. So we did this with fear, but now it's every day. Scale of 1 to 10. Where am I at in my anger? And so you can stop, slow down, get really quiet, feel in your body. Many will feel anger in certain parts of their body. What am I feeling? Where's my anger at? Do that regularly, because what happens if you've only been aware of your anger when it hits a 10 out of 10 is that often you got 4, 5, 6 anger and you're not even aware of it. But it's building to a 10 and it's going to explode soon if you don't catch it. So the sooner you can catch it, the better. Then you can become aware of it. So become aware of your early warning signs. So that might be just you're more irritable, you're more impatient, you don't want to be around people, you find yourself more critical, finding fault with others, you want to isolate. What are your early warning signs that anger is building? And be aware that there's probably certain times of the day that you're more prone to anger than other times of the day. So we talk about being hangry, you're hungry. We're more prone to anger. You're late in the day, you're tired, you're exhausted. Or you just get home from work and you're frustrated from work and you just want some space. Those are times when you are prone to anger. And then be aware that for most of us, there's this line of no return. You're building 4, 5, 6, 7. Once you get to 7, you're going to be at a 10 in no time. You can't stop it now. And so you need to become aware of where that line is, where you got to start to learn how to stop it before it crosses that line. So that takes us to the next part of mindfulness. You go, my anger's at a 6 today. This isn't good. So I got that part of mindfulness. Now you go to the second part. What's causing it? What's going on here? Why am I so irritable? Okay, maybe I'm overtired. Maybe I'm depressed. Maybe I haven't connected with anybody lately and I'm actually been too much on my own. Or maybe I've been smothered by people. I haven't had enough alone time. Have my feelings been hurt? Stop and look at that. And so for most people, they got to get some time alone when they realize my anger is building. And they're trying to figure out what's going on here. And then once they figure it out and they go, I'm really stressed, I'm overtired. Okay, now what do I got to do about it? Wow, I got to have to set some boundaries. I got to go to bed earlier. I'm going to have to maybe say no more often to people. And then part of dealing with anger to me is when I get up in the morning, I got to get myself not just aware of my anger, but if I see that there's anger building, then I got a plan to reduce the stuff that's causing anger, but then I got to go, okay, I got to get into a good headspace today. Because right now it's mainly negative and it's angry. I got to get to a place where it's characterized mainly by love, mainly by a willingness and a desire to be warm and to be open and to connect with other people. What do I got to do to get there? I need time to meditate. I need time to kind of surrender to what is healthy. And then what do I change? What do I accept because I can't change it? That's all got to be figured out as I deal with anger. So I would say that anger is one of the most important things to understand, one of the most difficult things to change positively, and it takes a long time to change it because it's it's the most powerful of all the emotions, but it is the most damaging of all the emotions. And so I just hope this gives you some help today. Hope it gives you some practical tools. Again, you can get more tools by watching the rest of the videos in the series on anger on YouTube. Okay, very quickly, I want to give you a whole bunch of other fears that many people have that come out of complex trauma. And so what you're going to see is we're going to end up looking at over 50 different fears today that come out of complex trauma. So fear of being alone, always needing people around me. Fear of dying alone. Fear of not fitting in or not belonging is a huge one. Fear of being different, a weirdo. Fear that no one will ever get me. So huge. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of losing your identity. Fear of embarrassment in public. Fear of looking stupid when people are watching you. Fears regarding your mental health, that you might end up with depression, that you might end up with major mental health issues. Fears regarding your physical health, of getting some sickness. Fears regarding your finances. Fears regarding your children who are in addiction right now. Fears that your young children might follow the same path as you did that might not be a good path. Fear of losing children. Fear of, and that could be too, child and family services. Fear of not getting your children back if you lose them. Fear that your children won't forgive you for the stuff that you did to them. Fears that your children won't want to be in a relationship with you when they get older. Many have a fear of aging, a fear of dying, a fear of gaining weight, fear of a body that's no longer attractive. Many have a fear that I got to go back to my past and deal with all these old wounds. Oh, that's just too scary. I got to deal with these losses. Oh, that's too scary. And so there's huge fear there. Some fear, okay, I'm going to go back and deal with all that stuff, but I'm afraid all that hard work's not going to pay off. Others, okay, I'm going to do hard work, but maybe I'm not going to get totally fixed. This recovery thing, there's not going to be a magic fix. It's going to be work for the rest of my life. I'm afraid of that ongoing work for the rest of my life. People that come out of addiction, alcoholism, often have a deep fear that they won't be able to drink socially, which was a part of their culture. Fear of getting healthy. I'm going to be a different person. Am I going to like that person? I won't be able to be an irresponsible child in an adult body. So I'm afraid of growing up and getting healthy. Many coming out of complex trauma have a fear that they're never going to achieve their dreams and their goals. Or many who've come out of complex trauma, they developed ways of surviving. That could be lying, stealing, flirting, using their body. And they're afraid to give up that main coping tool, that main survival tool, that old behavior. Fear of becoming responsible, fear that they'll get in a relationship and their partner's going to cheat on them or find somebody else. Fear that it's your fault that your partner's depressed or angry. Fear that you're never going to find your purpose in life. Fear that you're losing control. Fear of becoming authentic. That's going to result in rejection. Fear of being vulnerable. Fear of never being good enough. An interesting one for many people coming out of complex trauma is a fear of being boring. Or a fear of disappointing people and letting them down. Some with anxiety, they have a fear that their anxiety might get triggered and they become anxious. Then there's specific phobias that many have: spiders, snakes, flying, elevators, etc. Some have a fear of their own emotions, of feeling emotions. Some have a fear of just specific emotions like anger or sadness, or they have a fear of certain thoughts that come into their head. Some have a fear of moving out of their comfort zone. Some have a deep fear that they're going to end up becoming like their parents. The very thing that hurt them, the very thing that they hated. So those are a whole bunch of fears. How many of those were true of you? Again, hopefully what I want people to realize is you can't understand complex trauma till you see the centrality of fear in a person's adult life. And most have stuffed it down so much, denied it, that they're totally unaware of it. But that doesn't mean it's not operating at a subconscious level. And when it gets triggered, it can do a ton of damage. And so the more we're able to become aware of our fear and how it's affecting us, the more we're able to deal with this. Now let's come to, how do we begin to deal with this? Well, you have to begin to understand your fear symptoms. What are the things that I can look for to show me that fear is building? So what happens for a lot of people is they're not aware of fear until it hits 10 out of 10. What we want is to become aware of when fear is building and it's at a 3 or a 4 or a 5. So we see the early symptoms, the early warning signs that fear is building, and we can stop it and deal with it before it hits a 10 out of 10, and then we explode. So there's physical symptoms that you can look out for: trembling, feeling a bit twitchy, sweating, muscle tension, muscle aches, clenched teeth, clenched jaw, teeth grinding, shooting pains, stabbing pains, feeling pressure in your neck, your head, your face. Some get nauseous, some get diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome. Some get headaches, dizziness, lightheaded, they feel like they're floating. All of those can be physical fear symptoms. Then fear will affect your thinking. So some people will begin to know their thinking becomes obsessive about small things. And it becomes what some call brain chatter. It's just their brain's like hamster on a wheel. It just spins, spins, spins. And they start to blow stuff out of proportion. They can't let go of worrying about things. And then they can even start worrying that they're worrying too much. They jump to the worst case scenario in their thinking. Others start becoming very negative and critical about everything. Some turn it inward and start getting down on themselves about everything. Others get hypervigilant and they just start noticing and they're very on guard. So notice how it affects your thinking. Then it'll affect other emotions, not just fear, anxiety, but a lot will realize that their anger is increasing as their anxiety increases. They get more irritable. They're less patient and tolerant with people. Their expectations of others go up. You should meet all my needs now. You should do this for me now. That happens. They're very irritable, grouchy, anything sets them off. And then if something triggers them, nanosecond, they go into exploding. So anger, look for that. Then some, they start getting depressed. Life sucks, it's so hard, and they just go to a dark place. Others, as anxiety builds, they just start to feel stressed out and overwhelmed. And so that can lead to, for some, what's called emotional flipping. Roller coaster, dramatic mood swings. They feel great, they feel terrible. Life is wonderful, I'm top of it. Life sucks, I can't do anything. Some, one of their warning signs is all of a sudden they cry for no apparent reason. Even watching a commercial on TV, they're urged to cry. Where's that coming from? Usually because stuff's building inside of you. Others, as anxiety builds, they start to lose some of their normal emotions that they have when they're doing well. So their empathy for others, their warmth to others, their enjoyment of certain things, that all goes away. So be aware of that. Now let me come to healing. And what I want you to understand up front is, sadly, some people just think you should be able to find an instant fix to anxiety, to just make it go away. Just do this and it'll be gone. That doesn't understand complex trauma, where it's been building for years. It's in the subconscious for years. It is part of your autopilot, your default setting. You don't just make that disappear. It takes a lot of work and a lot of years to become aware of it and to heal and to grow and to get good tools. So don't look for a quick fix. But here's kind of what is important in beginning to deal with anxiety. If you realize, man, I got anxiety as the core of who I am. What happens with anxiety is the moment you start to feel it, your brain wants to go to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So you have to begin to learn to tolerate anxiety without running. And so you got to learn to sit in distress a little bit. So anxiety triggers your limbic brain. Your limbic brain wants to go fight, flight, freeze, fawn. What you're doing now is, okay, I don't have to run out of my limbic brain. I can tolerate being my limbic brain, but I got to get back to my cortex. So that's the process. But you have to learn to sit in some discomfort, and that will gradually grow so that you can handle more and more discomfort. But that's where it begins, and that is hard. Now we're going to basically end up with two main coping things, and it's called mindfulness and grounding. And it comes out of DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy. And it's really managing my limbic brain when it's triggered, getting back to my cortex. What are tools that help me do that? And so if anxiety is the main emotion that gets triggered all the time, then I can use DBT to help me learn to manage anxiety. So grounding is basically de-escalating my limbic brain, getting out of that so that I can get back to my cortex where I can think again and process the situation. I'm not just in limbic brain survival mode. Mindfulness is saying when I'm not in crisis mode, I need to be becoming more aware of how much anxiety do I have right now. I need to be what is underneath that anxiety. What is causing me to have anxiety? So there's awareness of my anxiety level, awareness of what's underneath my anxiety, and then developing tools and activities that help me grow and become more mature so that I can handle anxiety better. So that's the big picture of what you're working on. Now let me give you some other practical things that I hope will help you. Many people, their anxiety gets triggered when they have a plan to go out and do something that's social, that's new, it's going to stretch them a little bit. They have anxiety. Face that with a plan, a very little steps plan. So I'm going to a social event. I'm going to feel anxiety, okay? I'm not real strong at this yet, so maybe what I can do is go to this social event, but I'll sit near a door. And if I get a little overwhelmed, I can step outside for a bit and come back in. But I got a little plan in place so that I can handle it. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So you want to do that over and over again in every area. And often you'll need somebody who knows you well, who understands anxiety well, who can help you think through a plan for what you're going to be facing. The next thing, remember that when your anxiety is triggered, it affects your thinking because your limbic brain goes to distorted limbic brain thinking. So part of what you're doing is getting back to your cortex and reminding yourself of the truth. When you're in your limbic brain doesn't keep track of time. Only your cortex does. So your limbic brain, you feel like the age that wound happened. So you might feel 5, 6, or 7, or 8. And you're going to think like a 5, 6, 7, or 8-year-old. And you're going to feel, I'm all alone. Nobody's supporting me. I don't have the tools to handle this. So I might as well fight, flight, or freeze. So what you're going to do now is get back to your cortex and go, no, it feels like I'm alone, but that's not true. I now have people in my life that love me and support me. It feels like I don't have tools, but that's not true. I've been learning tools. I have tools I can now use. And so you replace the lies, the distortions, with the truth. But please be kind to yourself. You're going to struggle. This is not going to get conquered easily. Don't beat yourself up if you give in to anxiety a little bit. It is so deeply ingrained, it's not going to get uprooted overnight and change. Be gracious to yourself. Beating yourself up is only going to make the anxiety worse. Compassion, self-compassion is so important. Another thing that's helpful for many people is bring your fears out of the darkness into the light and talk to somebody about them. That, just in doing that, can free up some of that fear for many people. And then begin to know your triggers. What triggers your anxiety? So it could be a reminder of past events. It could be any situation where you don't feel in control, where you feel stress, where you feel overwhelmed. So be aware of that. It could be anytime you go through a change or a disruption of a normal routine. That could trigger anxiety. Anytime where you feel vulnerable, that will probably trigger anxiety. Anytime where there's conflict in a relationship or you feel attacked or criticized, that will trigger anxiety. Anytime there's separation or loss, anytime you're lonely, that's going to trigger the abandonment, the anxiety. Let me give you this. a lot of people, when they get triggered, they get mad at themselves. They feel like they've failed because they've been triggered. Look at a trigger this way. A trigger is actually a friend. It is there to help you. A trigger is an old wound that never healed. So little you that was wounded and that was never nurtured and healed and resolved way back when, today that's getting touched. That wound's getting touched. And what a trigger is that little you wound going, ouch. So instead of getting mad at that wound, say, oh, thank you, trigger, for pointing out to me a wound that I haven't healed yet, and pointing me to where I need to go next in my healing journey. That can be very, very helpful for people. Okay, know those early warning signs, so that when you see those early warning signs that you're at a 3, 4, 5, you're able to say, oh, what's going on here? Be mindful. Anxiety's building. So what's the cause of that? Okay, what do I need to change to deal with that so I can resolve it now and not wait till it hits a 10? So the better you know your early warning signs, the earlier you're able to identify anxiety is building, deal with it, and resolve it. That is so important. And so do 2-3 times a day an emotional inventory where you go, scale of 1 to 10, where's my anxiety at? And it's going to take you a while to get good at that, but it's so important to just stop, get yourself quiet, and go, what do I feel in my body? Where's my anxiety at? And pay attention. And then you go, whoa, I got a bunch of anxiety here I wasn't even aware of because I'm so busy. Oh, it's worse than I thought. What am I going to do about this? So that's an important thing. And then, like we said, prepare in advance for situations that you know will produce anxiety, so you have a plan. And then it boils down to, in every situation where you have anxiety, to ask yourself, what can I control in resolving this, and what can't I control? So let me just focus on what I can control, and then I'm going to have to learn to trust in the areas I can't control. That is a very difficult but important step. A psychologist by the name of Dr. Gary Chapman, wrote a book called The 5 Love Languages. And what the concept basically says is that we're individually wired so that certain expressions of love make us feel loved. Other types of expressions of love can be shown to us, but they leave us cold. And we're also wired that we like to show love to others in a certain way that is natural to us. Each of us will have our own style. So what I want to do is give you the 5 love languages. Then I want to show the issues that complex trauma adds to understanding and putting the love languages into effect. And hopefully it'll be very helpful to you and give you a lot of insight. Most of us have a combination of the different love languages. Very few of us will just have one of the love languages as our sole love language. We might have a blend of 2 or 3. So you can be keeping track of what you think yours might be, what you think your children's love language might be, what makes them feel love, and your partner's love language if you have one. So the first thing is words of affirmation. That can be, I love you, Or it can just be very encouraging words where you're validated, where you're told what makes you special, and you're encouraged in that. It can be verbal, but it can also be written notes, cards that are left for you that just express appreciation and love to you. Second one is gifts. So most of us go to chocolates and roses and all of that, and that can be a love language. But for many people, it's where somebody that loves you would give you a gift of money because they know you need money. And that just means so much to you. Or they might pay a bill for you or help you out so that you can have a night out. They'll pay for you to go out. That kind of giving of a gift that is very helpful and meaningful to the person. The third one is acts of service or making a sacrifice for the person. So this would be, let's say you're in a relationship and your partner is just really run down and not feeling very well, and you would say, let me take the kids out tonight and give you a break. Or let me just clean the house up for you. You just take the night off. Now, you might hate cleaning the house, but you make that sacrifice because it is necessary and meaningful to that person. So those kinds of acts of sacrifice that help a person going through whatever situation communicates love. So what I want you to see is that you look at all five are different ways that you communicate love in different situations. Number 4, focus quality time. Now, if you think about what I shared to you about my wife and about me, both of us have a love language of focus quality time. We both like when parents stop what they're doing and give full attention to the person. She just liked it in the fun version. I liked it in the deep conversation version. But both were focused quality time. And then the 5th one is physical affection. Now that can come as non-sexual, a hug, a massage, snuggling, that kind of thing, or sexual. And we're going to come back to these 5 because complex trauma adds layers of complication to it. Let me just make a few observations first. Number 1, love is not just a love language. Do you realize that an abuser can do all 5 of those things when they first meet you? They can say all the right things. They can give you gifts. They can make great sacrifices for you. They can listen to you with rapt attention. And they can just give you a back rub that goes nowhere. They do it till they got you. And then they stop. So you can use all 5 of those as a way to manipulate people. Or another way to say it is this: true love is the right action from the right motive. So is the person doing this dressing up their selfishness like they love me in order to get something? Because that's not love. But that's what people who learn to manipulate others take these 5 love languages and learn how to manipulate people with them. But it's all about getting what they want. It's selfishness dressed up by love. So love is the right action and the right motive, but it's even more than that. Love basically is a person that has character. They're honest. They're respectful. They're trustworthy. You could have a person who does the 5 love languages to you, but cheats on you and lies to you all the time. They don't love you. Love goes deeper than the languages. Love is a character thing. And I want to tell you a story that many of you will relate to because the woman we're going to talk about many of you would be in very similar circumstances. So it's in the Bible in John chapter 4, and it's about a Samaritan woman who was at a well that Jesus was at. So let me just read a little bit to you, and then I'll explain it and develop it for you. So it says, Jesus left Judea. And what that means, it's the southern part of Israel, right down close to Egypt. And he returned to Galilee, which is in the northern part of Israel. And to get through that, right in the middle of Israel, was this country called Samaria. And it split the nation in a north part and a south part, and Samaria in the middle. So it says he had to go through Samaria on the way. Jesus, tired from the long walk, sat wearily beside the well at Sychar about noontime. Soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink." The woman was surprised, for Jews in that culture refused to have anything to do with Samaritans, and I'll explain that in a bit. She said to Jesus, "You're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" And Jesus replied, "If you knew the gift God has for you and who you were speaking to, you would be asking me for a drink." And that sets up this dialogue, because Jesus says, "I would give you living water." Now let me draw your attention to three different pieces. The first one is that the woman came to the well at noontime. And I don't know if you've ever been in that culture, but it's hot over there. And so women, they didn't have taps, so all the water had to be from the community well. You drew it, you carried it back on your head, and that got you through the day. But they would come in the early morning in the cool of the day. Because to come at noontime in the heat of the day was the stupidest idea for anybody carrying a heavy water pot. So that begs the question, why is this woman coming at noontime? She's coming because she knows nobody else will be there. That's the time there will be nobody to talk to, nobody around. She can get her water and get home. And why is that? Now here's where it starts to connect with some of you. We are told this woman had been married 5 times, and she was currently living with a 6th guy. So she had a lot of men in her life. Now you can imagine in a small village what everybody thought about her. Because she had probably stolen a few husbands from other people in the village. So the point becomes, she's going at noontime because everybody hates her. She is despised by all the women. And I'm pretty sure if she went in the morning when all the women were drawing their water, can you imagine the sneers they would give her? And the little shots they would take at her? And the digs? And the snobbery that they would express around her? It was too painful to go through. So she comes at noontime. Now you have to understand it in a Jewish context. This woman has 3 strikes against her as far as the Jewish religious leaders were concerned. So part of the reason that this story is told is that Jesus was considered to be a Jewish leader, a religious leader, and so they think he's going to view this woman like all the other religious leaders view her. So here's what she had against her. Number 1, she's a woman. Do you realize that every Jewish man, every day when he got up from bed, he prayed. He had a prayer and he said, "God, I thank you that I am not a woman." He prayed that every day. Now, how would you like to be the wife of that? Okay, second thing, she was a Samaritan and they hated Samaritans. And thirdly, she was considered immoral because she had all these marriages that had fallen apart and she was living with a guy now. So All three of those things made her a very despised thing. Beyond that, the Jewish people hated the Samaritans. They saw them as a group of people who used to be Jews that married non-Jews and developed this half-breed race called the Samaritans. And so one of the things that they taught is that Samaritans were created by God to keep the fires of hell burning. So they despised Samaritans, but if you paid attention there, they thought God did too. And they thought God was sending them all to hell, and he just couldn't wait to get rid of them. That was in their thinking. But it goes further. I got a little map to show you. So if you look there at the bottom, there's green, and then above it, it says Judea in a kind of a salmon color. Then above that, you see in blue Samaria, and then above that is Galilee, where Jesus was heading, okay? So if you were in the south, and you had to go to Galilee, what you did is you went east. So you see the Dead Sea there, and then there's a river that goes up as a boundary on Israel, and then there's a little lake at the top. What the Jews would do is go across the river, go up the east side of the river in the green, and come back into Galilee, recrossing the river. They would not go into Samaria. So that's how much they hated those people. And so Jesus, the fact that he went into Samaria, talked to this woman who was a Samaritan and immoral, would have just blown everybody's brains out. They go, what is he thinking? Now there's a second thing I want you to notice. You notice that Jesus says, I want to give you living water. What he is saying and identifying is two things. Number one, is he is saying there is a thirst that we experience that is physical. So we get thirsty for a glass of water. But there's a thirst that we experience that has nothing to do with water. It's a thirst that comes from another part of us. It's a thirst that is different. And most of you as an addict understand that thirst. It comes out of some place inside of you where there's an emptiness, but you long for something, and you try these different things to try to satisfy the thirst. So think of it this way. If you've been at Finding Freedom or React, you've heard the 12 needs being taught. And what it basically says is that we're all created with 12 needs. Some are physical needs, some are emotional needs, some are relational needs, and some are spiritual needs. If you look at the physical needs, we are created with a need for food, water, and a sexual drive. What I think, and this is my opinion, is that those three needs were given us to make us aware that we also have thirst that's outside of the physical. We have emotional thirst. We have relationship thirst. We have a spiritual thirst. And sex means we desire physical intimacy, but it was a sign pointing us to the fact that we also desire emotional intimacy. We desire spiritual intimacy. And so what Jesus is saying is you've got a thirst, but it's not a physical thirst. And then he takes it a step further, and he says basically this, that thirst in you, you've been trying to satisfy with men. And it hasn't been working for you. You've had this thirst that for you feels like a thirst to be loved. It feels like a thirst to be in a relationship with a man. And you've gone from relationship to relationship, and they haven't satisfied that thirst. Your track record shows that. I want to tell you, Jesus is saying, that thirst goes deeper than a physical, and it goes deeper than a human relationship thirst. You're actually thirsting for God. You have a thirst that only God can satisfy, and I happen to be the guy that can give you that water. And so what he is saying is, God made everybody with a thirst for him, and He wants to meet that thirst. He desires to meet that thirst. So that takes me to the last point, and that is Jesus said to his disciples, I have to go through Samaria. So I'm down in the south, I got to go to the north. He said, I have to go through Samaria. Like I told you, the Bible part that this is written in was written in the Greek language. That word for I have to go, it means I've got a divine appointment. And what he is saying is I'm not going there because I just want a shortcut. He's saying I want to go there, I have to go there because there's somebody there who's thirsting for God, and I have to show them how. And I have to show up. And so what Jesus is saying to this woman is this. All of Israel might hate you. All of Israel might take a detour around you. All of Israel might look down on you and tell you God hates you. But I'm here telling you He doesn't. I'm here telling you He wants to satisfy your thirst for Him, and I can show you how. And He is making very clear that everybody else might see you like an outcast, and you might be told that God sees you as an outcast. You're not an outcast to God. God reaches out to the outcast. That's what His love is about. And you want to know what is very interesting to me? Jesus is leaving the south. That's where the religious Jews lived. That's where their capital, Jerusalem, was. After just another year or so, Jesus was going to just walk away from those people. And He was going to say to them, you guys are religious, you don't have a clue. You guys are so out of touch with God, you're not even connected to God. But you want to know who is open to God? It's the outcasts. And so I am devoting myself from now on to reaching those people who have a thirst and realizing it. And I'm going to help them diagnose that thirst so that they realize they're loved and they can come to enter that relationship.